Hey everybody, Merry Christmas, and I hope you're having a wonderful time and with your family, and hopefully you're getting fat out of scrumptious, lovely Christmas food. I'm Alice Wong, and today we are going to watch a tutorial on how I painted this Christmas girl. So this is my third speed painting in my entire life, and I was very proud when I finished this because I only did this in 1.5 hours. Well, actually less than that, like 1 hour 15 minutes around there. So I was very proud of this piece. I was very shocked about the amount of things that I actually managed to do in such short time. So I learned a lot in this piece, and I thought to share this as a Christmas special on this channel. The reference photo I used can be found over at Pixabay. I will leave the link down below in the video description so you can check that out if you want to use it as a reference so you can paint along with me on this one. I also provided the brushes that I use as well as the full-size resolution of the image over at my Patreon page, which you can check for only $2. So without further ado, hope you enjoy. So I am starting with a gray canvas. So I don't start with white because it kind of gives an optical illusion. If you start with white, everything that you paint will be a little bit on the underexposure side. So I usually use a neutral color, which is gray, and then I'll start getting to work. In a separate layer, I will start doing the outline, and I'm laying down the foundation of a human skull. So I'm following the Andrew Loomis approach, where I start with a round shape for the head, and the side panes of a head is usually flat. So draw two straight lines, and then the first horizontal line is for the eyebrows. Follow half of that down, that will be like the nose, and a quarter of that will be the mouth, as you can see here. So that's the formula he recommends, and for the most part is always correct. For this video, it's the speed is ×2, so you can see in I guess it's not too long, but still at a faster rate where absorption is easier. So this is what I usually do. I will start putting down the outlines and then clean it up a little. And I use this, and I do this in a separate layer, so if anything goes wrong, I can always delete it. So this is my third speed painting in my life, and I was really proud of this one. Speed paintings are really a very good tool to practice on. I find that many of my paintings I spend days on, and I always get so engrossed on a certain portion of the painting that I spend particularly a lot of time. And what happens is that I spend so much time trying to make everything look detailed, but I'm spending it in all the wrong ways. So in the end, it did not really look very detailed to begin with anyway. It just, when you start zooming out, everything looks too small to appreciate anyway. So speed painting is really cool because you don't magnify all that much, and you rely a lot on custom brushes to give that texture. So it's kind of like a Bob Ross painting, you know. He used the perfect types of brushes for certain texture, and it's just like a shortcut way, and that helps a lot. So the outline, I kind of faded it into a little more gray, so it's easier to blend instead of going entirely black for the outline. And then I put the foundation colors, I put it at 100% opacity for my brushes and a hard round brush. Then I start beginning shading with a standard round brush with a 50% opacity. I start with the shadows first, so usually that's at the eyes, underneath the nose, and underneath the lips. and since she's wearing a hood, also her forehead and the side of her cheeks. So you will notice I will flip horizontally a lot, and this was one of my every painting. I always say that I flip it horizontally because it is a very invaluable tool for me. Just a simple thing like flipping it horizontally gives your brain a whole new perspective. And I even made a video just for that on my YouTube channel. It's very, because when you start painting, your brain is very biased. It thinks everything is perfect until you flip it horizontally, and then your brain sees it in a whole new light, and all of a sudden it doesn't look all that perfect anymore. And yeah, I'm pretty sure you know those times where you feel it's out of proportion, but you just don't know why it's out of proportion. By flipping it horizontally, you could find out what went wrong along the way. If you're doing canvas paintings, having a mirror holding up your canvas against a mirror would help. So I like to shade the lips in. I don't like to paint the lips at 100% opacity, then only shade it. I like to blend it with the skin tone. So I use the color picker, and then I will change the shade accordingly depending on what I want. So if you're wondering if reference photos are helpful, they are indeed very, very, very helpful, especially if you're starting out. It's always nice to learn from something. I mean, it's very difficult to learn how to paint when you're not supposed to copy anything. I mean, humans are all about copying. We learn from observing. That's the only way. And I've read this book by a fantasy artist that says very, very what he said was it hold a lot of truth. Like, for example, you see your mom, and then you see her every day. You know how your mom looks like. I mean, you don't need a picture to tell you how your mom looks like. And then but then when you're asked to paint her without any photo whatsoever, can you do it? That would be very, very difficult. And especially like what's the lighting she want? Does she want like a, like a third quarter lighting, or Rembrandt lighting? And then do you know her facial structure, how the shadow would fall? Because different facial structure will form different shadows and highlights. That's going to be very tough. So having a reference photo, you not only will you get the proportions or anatomy correct, but you will also learn how things work, how which part of the face has the most curvature, which part of the face juts out. Like the nose juts out the most, so the nose for the most part is always the lightest part of the face. I usually in my previous paintings, I always want to make the eyes very like a perfect circle, so but for this piece I don't want to dwell too much on the details, so I just draw a circle. Yeah, it doesn't even look like a circle, it looks like a big blob. But yeah, then I just kind of go with the flow, really. I think that's the best part about speed painting. It's like, don't care. I mean, of course you care, but like, don't dwell too much if it, doesn't look right. It's all about experimenting, about practicing. So don't think too much of it. So I will correct it along the way, but just don't let your downfall get to you too much. You can always fix it, no problem. And I thought to give her blue eyes. I like blue eyes and blonde hair. I think they go well in hand. and trying to make the eyes look very reflective by giving very reflective eyes. It definitely gives your painting more life. If you don't like, especially you see, because human eyes, they are always very moist, that's why they reflect a lot. If they don't reflect, means they're dead. You know, they no longer produce moisture in the eyes. And don't forget the tear dots. But the tear dots, it's kind of like you just stroke with a few different colors, and that's it. You zoom out, you wouldn't even know how detailed or not detailed is it, you know. So that's what speed painting is all about. Like as I zoom out, you probably don't even realize the tear dots all that much. So this is the kind of thing about speed painting. You don't focus too much on the details. Previously, I would probably spend like maybe a minute, half a minute for the tear dots. And then, you know, when you zoom out, it's really not that different. I probably spent like 15 seconds on the tear dots and boom, out. So I have to blend out the outlines so you won't realize it. Well, she's supposed to have blonde hair, so I started with a dark brown and then slowly lighten it to a yellow. But I didn't go overly detailed on this one because most of her hood is gonna cover her eyebrows. So for me, it's just enough to show that she has eyebrows. I mean, if part of the hood will cover it, at this point, I'm not really sure how much the hood will cover, so I just kind of put that as a precaution. And I add in the shadow because you won't see much inside the hood. So I'm following my reference, but I'm not following it to the T. You see, reference is just a reference. It's just to help you understand how the person would look like, how the guidance of the lighting, the proportion, but you don't have to follow it to the T. So I'm adding a little bit of eyelashes, a little bit here, and because she's a girl, I'm not gonna give her like a ton of eyeliner or eyeshadow. It's just gonna be like a plain looking eyes. And honestly, I think if you have eyes as blue as that, I don't think you really need much eye makeup to begin with anyway. So yeah. So for the shadow part, I hear a lot of artists say that shadows do not only belong to black, and for the most part it's true, but it's kind of hard to apply it, you know, because sometimes people can tell you things and you know it's true, but you just don't know how to apply it. So for this one, I try to avoid using black as much as possible for shadows. For the skin, I tried to use a brown, a darker tone. And later on you can see I use orange as part of the shadow parts of her face, which I will explain later. For her hair, I always start with a standard round brush with oh no, in this case it was a hard round brush, but a 50% opacity, just to block in the colors. And I always start with a darker color and then moving up to a lighter color. For this, I just want to put a little bit of shadow, just a little bit here and there, because her blonde hair is pretty much on the light side. So just gonna put a little bit of shadow, a little bit of dark strokes here and there. So now I'm finding for a lighter color for her hair. And then I use a standard round brush and just slowly stroke that in. At this point, I feel her hair is a little bit saturated. I'm trying to kind of move from the saturated colors because my previous work, there's a lot of saturated colors that probably don't look too real. Trying to avoid that, so just I feel it's a little saturated, but I just leave it at this point. I'll carry on doing something else. Sometimes it's better to see the painting as a whole, and then you know what to do with it. For the scarf, I use a textured brush, and most of the time, the textured brushes is usually a hit or miss. I didn't know how the outcome will be, but that's the whole thing about painting, you know. You gotta practice and experiment a lot. So I thought to just give it texture and then just paint in the folds of the cloth of her scarf, and you know, and then I thought to give it an illusion that it's those knitted kind of scarves. So I just took a hard round brush at 50% opacity, and I just draw those kind of like curved lines to make it look like it was knitted. But you know, it's as I said again, that this is just a speed painting, so I just want to give an illusion that it looks real from afar on first glance. So you know, it's just the illusion of reality. It's not hyperrealism, but you just want to do it in a way, a very painterly feel, you know. I'm blocking in the colors for her fur part of her hood. The layers comes in handy. I use quite a lot of layers, to be honest, and the placement of layers will definitely help a lot. On this layer, I am painting all the wrinkles and the diamond pattern, the diamond knitted pattern on her hood. So the top layer, the top Photoshop layer will come out first, whereas all the layers underneath will be beneath that layer. So for example, you see that gray portion of her hood, it's actually on top of the purple. So no matter how much, you can see I'm painting on the purple, but it doesn't affect the gray part of her hood. That's because of the layer placement. That's the trick to it. So you can see I pick my layers. A good thought, a good habit is to name your layers, which I don't. Every painting I always say I don't name my layers. I know it's very important, but I'm just too lazy for that. Okay, so I'm using a standard round brush and I'm just creating the silhouette of fur, just to give a soft look to it. I'm not painting the fur yet, but I just want to, first you gotta give a believable silhouette. And you always start off with a big brush. It's usually everything in painting. You always start off like a big blob, and then you slowly get smaller into the details. So I'm going to start with a very dark gray because I want to show that the volume of fur. This shows like it's a very thick coat of fur. So I'm going to start off by using the standard round brush with a lighter gray. And I'm just going to add in all the strokes just to give the illusion of fur. It does look a little bit like fur, but we all know it's not there yet. So it's a matter of layers, and when I say layers, I mean painting layers, not Photoshop layers this time. So we'll have to do this a few times to really give that illusion of fur. Sometimes there really is no shortcut to this. So I thought I could speed things up using a custom-made brush for fur, but I'm not really at that stage yet, so I decided to drop it and continue doing my standard round brush. But then I got lazy on that one, so I tried another textured brush. It's kind of like a standard round brush, but with a little bit of texture in it to give it a little bit more texture to it. You know, it's just something different instead of smooth round brush. So you just gotta repeat the process a few times, especially when it comes to fur. I always find that repeating the process really gives it the sense of realism, because it just adds all that layer and layer of fur. It makes it a whole lot more believable. So I'm going back to the standard round brush. But before that, I'm going to paint the edges white. I really like backlighting, so I thought we should do this as a backlighting piece, and to make it a little bit more magical. I like backlighting because it really gives like a halo effect. I really like that. A lot of my paintings I like to use backlighting. So then I continue painting the strokes. So as we get deeper into it, my brush size becomes smaller, so it looks a lot more detailed. So if you've seen the reference photo, like I said before, I don't follow the reference to the T, but it's a good guide. Even the fur I don't exactly follow. I follow the rough directions of it, but that's about as good as it gets. So now I'm using the textured fur brush just to add a little bit of those tiny fur strands that I don't want to do manually. Just want to speed things along. So from a dark gray base color, we're starting to move to more of a white fur look. And as the fur poke out, the lighter they'll become. So the edges of the fur becomes lighter, whereas the inside is a very dark color to really sell that believability that there's a, you know, it took a lot of fur to make that hood. So for the background, I thought to give it a nice little halo effect, so, and it gives a nice pastel blue as well. So I made the bottom a little on the dark side, and then behind her is more of a yellowy style. Kind of looks like a halo that I really like. And because the fur had backlighting, I have to make it consistent by making the purple side backlighted as well. And because of its diamond stitching, it's not like a straight line, you know, it has to follow the stitching, which is kind of like a diamond pattern. And the source of light, there's two sources of light. One was behind her and the other one is in front of her. So the scarf, I had to lighten it as well. Also her hair. So her hair, I'm using a lighter yellow, but also a more desaturated yellow, moving towards a white feel. So I'm putting in those little strands, making my brush size really small, and you know, just to sell that realism a little, I'm just gonna paint all kinds of strands flying out, you know, not making it so orderly, because nobody's hair can look that perfect except Legolas. And I thought, because her hair, I always imagined blonde hair to be very reflective, so some of that yellow will be reflected onto her face, while the sky would be blue as shown in the background, so add a little bit of blue into her skin. I feel that the yellow would be reflective but not that reflective, so I dyed down on the yellow on her cheeks a little. So like I said, shadows are not just black. They're, you know, light sources come from everywhere, and should apply that. So there'll be like yellow from her hair, blue from the sky, and then I'll try to, you know, add a little orange as shadows. So I'm just doing the finishing touches of, you know, making sure that it looks somewhat symmetrical, especially when a person is looking into the quote-unquote camera. It's always a challenge to make it as symmetrical as possible. So now I'm using orange as the shadow parts. Now it kind of gives an idea to her surroundings, like, you know, that the parts that I made orange are a shadow part. So you can roughly imagine that's how maybe the floor would look like. It kind of gives a clue on how her surroundings look. We know that there's blue, there's yellow, and there's orange that's reflected on her face. And I gotta enhance the shadow a little more because she is wearing a hood. And because her nose juts out the most, that should be the lightest part of the face. We're getting there. So just a reminder, you've seen that I have flipped it horizontally quite a few times. And you can see one eye was a little bit slanted before, and then I fixed that up. So that's very important for flipping it horizontally. So I decided to make her eyelashes a little bit darker to make her eyes pop just a little bit more. I thought to add a little bit of yellow at the side of her whites of her eyes, just to kind of make it a little bit more reflective, just to add a little bit more of those painterly feel. So just cleaning up, especially the outline, just a little. I thought to keep it consistent, so I've added a little bit of orange to the underparts of her hair, and also added the blue on the tops of it, just to kind of make the color a lot more cohesive with everything else. Because if you do not apply those color from the background onto your subject, then it kind of make your subject look like it was copy pasted there. You know, it doesn't look like she is one with the environment that you have painted for her. I think this is a very good subject to start off on a speed painting, because there's really not that much to focus on. You just need to just focus on the girl and make her pretty. Just her face as well as her coat, but that's about it. So I thought to add some snow in the background, so to because she's wearing such attire that, you know, that's perfect for cold weather. So might as well make the background look really cold and snowy. I think that translates really well. So I decided to put snow in the background and use a Gaussian blur. I really like Gaussian blur because it gives a very nice bokeh, a soft bokeh effect. And then I played with the levels, making the background a little bit darker where it needs to be. And I just didn't want the background to have snow. I want the front one to have snow as well. So I kind of experimented a little. I wanted to try different brushes and see what I get. But as I said, this is experimenting. So I was just trying out different kinds of brushes, changing the settings, see whether it works. But not really. It didn't work, so I went back to the other brush. The original one I did for the background, I did the same for the foreground. So you can see her face is kind of blocked from the snow, so I have to erase a little bit, not all of it, but just a little. So now it looks really a lot cooler now. Because of all the snow, you really believe that the clothes she's wearing is fit for the situation. Now I like to make her lips extra glossy. I mean, I like glossy lips, so for me that's a personal preference on that part. Especially in cold weather, I think if I had kids, I would always ask them to wear chapsticks, lip gloss and stuff during such cold weather so they won't crack. So I think it's fitting. And always remember to save your file. Cause I forgot. I was having so much fun painting that I forgot to save it. And then I thought to do a photo filter. But I tried different colors. It didn't really work for me. So in the end, I skipped it. I did not use it. Photo filter is just basically putting a single color on top of your layer. But in the end, I did not use it, so I just carried on. I combined all the layers, background, subject, and foreground. I created another layer and set it to overlay. This helps me add in some colors without affecting the details. So I thought to make her fur look a little bit blue because of the sky. You know, same thing. I try to make it a little bit more color cohesive. So add in some orange and yellow on the underside of the fur, just to make it a little bit more believable. I kind of forgot to do for the scarf. I just realized. But yeah, just on a note, try to make everything color cohesive. At the same time, just trying to clean things up because we're almost done. And last but not least, I wanted to give her a smile because the reference photo, she looked very moody, and you know, this is supposed to be for Christmas, so you know, she got a smile. It's a happy season. And I feel like making her smile, I think it was the biggest change for this piece. Just to make her smile, it really changed the entire mood. And there you have it. Merry Christmas, everybody. And save. Thanks so much for watching. If you found it helpful, we really appreciate if you like and subscribe to my channel. And also please leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I have live streams every alternate Saturday, so it would really mean a lot if you can come and join us. Just say hi, chat as I paint, and come meet the art squad. I like to thank my patrons over at Patreon. Because of them, they help keep my channel going and my passion still lives on. You can check out my Patreon page and see what exclusive rewards I have to offer. By doing that, you help support me. So that is all for today. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Christmas and have a happy new year. I will see you guys in the next video, or probably the next live stream. And bye guys.